The French National Assembly on May 27, 2025 passed a bill that for the first time would provide terminally ill people in France the legal right to choose assisted dying, a right that allows a person to voluntarily end his life with medical assistance. The bill, backed by President Emmanuel Macron, was approved by a significant margin, 305 to 199 votes. This was after 2 weeks of debates and deliberations. While it must still pass through the Senate and return for a second reading in the Assembly, it is assumed to become a law by 2027. The right to die refers to a legal and moral principle that individuals suffering from terminal or incurable conditions should have the option to end their lives on their own terms with dignity. This typically falls under the assisted dying, which may provide a doctor providing a lethal substance that the patient can take themselves. In some countries, if the patient is unable to self-administer, a medical professional can assist. France's bill introduces a version of assisted dying, but one that is more restrictive than systems in places like Belgium or the Netherlands. Here's what the bill allows. Only individuals suffering from a serious and incurable disease. The disease must be life-threatening and in its advanced or terminal phase. The person must be in constant physical or psychological suffering. The patient must be mentally competent and able to freely express their intention to die. It does not allow assisted dying for minors, foreigners, or people unable to express their will. For an example, if a person is in coma. It is not available to the people simply tired of living or those who are not in terminal conditions. Doctors and nurses may refuse to participate, but they may not obstruct the process. Doing so could result in 2 years in jail. The person makes a voluntary request. A 48-hour waiting period is required. The request must be confirmed after the waiting period. A doctor in consultation with peers must give authorization. Once approved, the lethal dose would be self-administered by the patient. If the patient is physically unable, a medical assistant may administer it. The passing of this bill marks a significant shift in France's approach to end-of-life care. The issue of assisted dying has long divided opinion in the country. President Macron, describing the legislation as a path of fraternity, emphasized that it seeks to balance compassion with ethical responsibility. The bill was accompanied by a separate, unanimously supported law to expand access to palliative care, a move that addresses another pressing concern. Nearly half of the patients in France who need palliative care do not receive it, prompting many to argue that the country must do more to support people in the final stages of life, whatever their choices may be. Critics, many echoing the techniques of Catholic Church, worry that the eligibility criteria are too vague, potentially allowing vulnerable people to feel pressured into dying. Some fear it creates a cultural shift that could devalue the lives of the elderly or disabled. A demonstrator suffering from Parkinson's described the law as a loaded pistol left on my bedside table. If the law is finalized, France will become the 8th European country to permit some form of assisted dying, joining nations like Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, Luxembourg, Austria, Germany, and Portugal. Globally, assisted dying laws have been gaining traction in places like Canada, Colombia, New Zealand, and parts of the US and Australia. Here's an overview of when various countries legalized assisted dying or expected to do so. The Netherlands legalized euthanasia in 2002, permitting it for individuals experiencing unbearable suffering with no prospect of improvement. In 2023, the law was extended to exclude children under 12 under strict conditions. Belgium followed the Netherlands in 2002, legalizing both euthanasia and assisted dying. In 2014, it became the first country to allow euthanasia for minors of any age, with parental consent and under stringent criteria. Switzerland has tolerated assisted suicide since the 1940s, provided the individual administering assistance has no selfish motives. Euthanasia remains illegal. Luxembourg, Spain, Portugal, New Zealand, and Canada followed in 2000s and 2010s. The US permits assisted suicides in selected states, starting with Oregon in 1997. Australia and Germany allow forms of assisted dying, through implementation varies by state or legal framework. France is poised to legalize assisted dying by 2027, through under stricter conditions than its neighbors.